Imagine the weight of shadows in a forgotten cellar, or a child's tiny hands clutch forbidden mercy. In the blood-soaked soil of 1864 Georgia, one girl's whisper of compassion awakens a divine storm of guilt and retribution. What if saving your enemy meant damning your soul? Tonight, the veil tears open. In the fading twilight of the American South, where the red earth of Georgia drank deep from the wounds of a nation at war, the hardened plantation stood as a crumbling monument to human frailty and divine judgment. It was March 1865 when Union troops, their boots heavy with the mud of Sherman's merciless march, pried open the secrets buried beneath that forsaken ground. The main house, once a symbol of hollow grandeur, now sagged under the weight of its own sins, peeling paint like flaking skin, windows shattered like broken promises. As soldiers hammered through the rotting floorboards, a hush fell over the squad, battle-scarred men who had seen the horrors of Gettysburg and Atlanta. What emerged from the darkness wasn't just a hidden chamber, it was a tomb of the spirit, a cramped void no bigger than a confessional booth, its walls etched with frantic scratches like the marks of a soul clawing for redemption. The air down there was thick, stale with the ghosts of despair, damp earth mingled with the faint rot of forgotten provisions. In one corner, a rusted iron chain dangled limply, its links corroded by time and tears, attached to a ring bolted into the stone floor. But it was the handprints that froze the blood in their veins, two sets pressed into the dried mud, preserved like ancient relics. One large, broad-palmed, bearing the calluses of a life gripped by violence. The other, heartbreakingly small, delicate fingers splayed in silent plea. A Dalton child, locked in an eternal embrace of complicity. Local whispers spoke of the Harrow family vanishing like smoke 3 weeks before the Union's arrival, leaving behind fields choked with weeds and a legacy of unspoken atrocities. Military reports sealed the discovery away for 6 decades, classifying it as a matter of sensitive wartime intelligence. When the files were finally pried open in the 1920s, key pages were missing, torn out, as if to erase a sin too profound for history's ledger. But secrets, like buried seeds, have a way of sprouting in the fertile soil of truth. Tonight, we unearth the full chronicle of those 9 harrowing months in 1864, a tale woven from threads of desperation, forbidden loyalty, and the inexorable pull of divine justice. This isn't just a story of survival amid the Civil War's carnage, it's a meditation on the soul's ledger, the weight of guilt, the whisper of redemption, and the chilling certainty that no act, however hidden, escapes the eyes of Providence. As we delve into this narrative, picture it not as dry history, but as a living tableau, the flickering lantern light casting elongated shadows, the distant crack of gunfire echoing like thunderous judgments, the oppressive humidity clinging to skin like unconfessed sins. We'll explore how one child's act of mercy became a catalyst for a plantation's unraveling, infusing every moment with the biblical echoes of Cain's mark, Job's trials, and the parable of the Good Samaritan twisted into something far darker. Before we descend into the depths, pause and reflect. If you're drawn to the shadowed corridors of history where fear and faith collide, subscribe to our channel now. Hit that notification bell to never miss an unveiling of America's haunted underbelly. And in the comments below, share the hidden history from your own corner of the world. What forgotten tale from your town whispers of divine retribution? Now, let us step back to the crucible where this saga ignited, the sweltering spring of 1864 in Tolbert County, Georgia. The air that season hung heavy, pregnant with the scent of blooming jasmine warring against the acrid smoke of distant battles. It was as if the land itself sensed the approaching apocalypse, the fields shimmering under a sun that beat down like the hammer of an angry god. The Harrow Plantation sprawled across 320 acres of unforgiving red clay, a middling empire in the grand scheme of Southern aristocracy, yet vast enough to demand the sweat and souls of 34 enslaved individuals. The soil here was biblical in its demands, parched and cracked in drought, turning to bloody mud in rain, a constant reminder of the Genesis curse, by the sweat of your brow you will eat your food until you return to the ground. Cotton bolls burst white against the crimson earth, but the yield had dwindled with each passing year of war, as if the land rebelled against its exploiters. At the heart of this domain stood the main house, a 2-story edifice of faded glory. Its whitewashed facade peeled in long strips, revealing the weathered wood beneath, like flesh stripped from bone in a divine flaying. The front porch sagged under invisible burdens, its columns twisted slightly from years of neglect, and the long driveway was flanked by ancient oaks draped in Spanish moss that swayed like mourning veils. These trees, once symbols of southern resilience, now drooped listlessly, their leaves whispering prophecies of downfall. Inside, the rooms echoed with emptiness, high ceilings amplifying every creak, every sigh, as if the house itself breathed in labored agony. Candlelight flickered in the evenings, casting grotesque shadows that danced like demons on the wallpaper, patterned with faded fleurs-de-lis that evoked a mocking royalty. Thomas Harrove, the patriarch at 44, ruled this fading kingdom with the iron fist of a man who mistook cruelty for strength. His frame was lean, wiry, honed by years of oversight rather than labor, his hair thinning to reveal a scalp mottled with sunspots like marks of Cain. His eyes, steel gray and unyielding, scanned the world with perpetual suspicion, lines etched deep around them from squinting at ledgers and lashing out at perceived slights. Inherited from a father who rose from dirt-poor obscurity through cunning deals and whispered violence, Thomas embodied the South's moral decay, a man who viewed his fellow humans as chattel, entries in a balance sheet of profit and loss. The war had eroded his empire, conscripted sons lost to fever in Virginia camps, supplies requisitioned by Confederate forces, and rumors of Union advances that made his nights sleepless. He paced the halls like a ghost, his boots thudding rhythmically, a metronome of mounting dread. In his quieter moments, one might glimpse a flicker of doubt, a man grappling with the proverb's warning, pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. But pride was his armor, and he clung to it fiercely. Beside him, or rather apart from him, languished his wife, Eleanor, once a belle of Savannah society, now a spectral figure confined to her upstairs chamber. At 38, her beauty had withered under the onslaught of grief, porcelain skin turned sallow, raven hair streaked with premature gray, hands that trembled like autumn leaves in a gale. The doctor called it melancholic vapors, but the enslaved whispered of a soul fractured by loss, 4 infants buried in the family plot, tiny crosses weathering under Georgia rains. Eleanor spent her days by the window, gazing at the fields where bent figures toiled, her eyes distant, as if seeking absolution in the horizon. Thomas's visits were perfunctory, standing in the doorway like a stranger, his voice gruff, "Need anything?" Her silence was a rebuke, a mirror to his own emotional barrenness. In her isolation, she embodied the psalmist's lament, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" A woman adrift in a sea of unspoken sins, her faith eroded by the plantation's daily brutalities. Enforcing Thomas's will was the overseer, Silas Crow, a brute of 37 whose presence evoked the biblical Goliath, though lacking any David's redemption. Broad-shouldered and bull-necked, with a shaved head scarred from barroom brawls and eyes like chips of flint, Silas had clawed his way from the Appalachian hills, where poverty taught him that power flowed from the whip's crack. His hands, massive and veined, bore the stains of blood and tobacco, always itching for the coiled bullwhip at his belt. He patrolled the fields with sadistic zeal, his voice a guttural bark that sent shivers through the quarters. Work or bleed, he'd snarl, finding pretexts for punishment in a dropped tool or a lingering glance. The enslaved feared him as one fears the devil's emissary, his laughter a low rumble during floggings, his mercy non-existent. Yet beneath the bluster lurked a hollow man, driven by his own demons, a father hanged for theft, a childhood of hunger that twisted compassion into contempt. In him, the plantation's evil found its sharpest edge, a living embodiment of the Ephesians' warning against the powers of this dark world. Among those bound in this web of suffering was young Lila, a girl of 12 whose slight frame belied a spirit forged in fire. Her skin glowed like burnished mahogany under the sun, her eyes wide and watchful, pools of amber that absorbed everything while revealing nothing, a survival mask honed since infancy. Her hair, cropped short and bound in a ragged kerchief, framed a face etched with premature wisdom, faint scars on her arms from errant switches. Lila moved like mist through the main house, her bare feet silent on the creaking floors, performing the endless litany of tasks, polishing silver until her fingers blistered, hauling wood for the hearth, mending linens with needles that pricked like accusations. Her mother had been torn from her at age 7, auctioned off to a Mississippi trader to cover Thomas's debts, a memory that haunted her dreams, the auctioneer's gavel echoing like Judgment Day's trumpet. Locked in the smokehouse for her screams, Lila learned silence as armor, obedience as shield. Her father? A shadow, sold before her birth, leaving only Ruth's vague tales and the kitchen whispers. Lila's world shrank to a cramped alcove beneath the backstairs, a burrow scarcely 5 feet by 7, its dirt floor cool and unforgiving. Walls of splintered planks let in winter. Winds that howled like lost souls, and her bed was a threadbare quilt over straw matting that reeked of damp. In a tin box hidden under a loose board, she guarded her treasures: a polished acorn from the oak grove, a shard of sea glass washed up from some distant shore, and a faded ribbon from her mother's bonnet, talismans of love in a loveless realm. This space was her sanctuary, a microcosm of the enslaved's plight, confined, overlooked, yet pulsing with quiet defiance. Here, in the velvet dark, Lila whispered prayers drawn from overheard sermons, blending biblical fragments with African rhythms passed down in secret, invocations for deliverance, for the Red Sea to part anew. It was in this fragile haven that fate wove Lila into a tapestry of peril and providence. One stifling night in late April, as thunder grumbled on the horizon like divine discontent, Lila stirred from uneasy slumber. Through the thin ceiling slats, sounds intruded: Thomas's measured pacing in the parlor above, his voice a hushed thunder laced with uncharacteristic tremor.
"You swear no eyes followed you? No whispers in the wind?"
His tone carried the edge of a man staring into the abyss, a rare crack in his facade of control. Silas's reply rumbled low, gravelly with urgency. "Stumbled on him in the border thicket, near the creek bed, bullet lodged deep in his side, fever raging like hellfire.
He's fading fast, boss.
Without tending, he's dust by dawn."
Thomas's chair scraped, wood on wood like bones grinding.
"Then leave him to the crows. Why drag this curse to my threshold?
The woods swallow secrets better than any grave."
A pause, heavy as judgment. Silas leaned in, his whisper conspiratorial.
"Because he's no ordinary drifter.
A Union deserter, turned informant for our side. Been slipping through Yankee lines, mapping their camps, their supply chains.
Says he's got details on Grant's next push, could turn the tide, by the Confederacy months. But he's hunted, patrols scouring every hollow.
If they snag him, it's the noose for spying. Needs shelter, time to mend." Lila's breath caught, her ear pressed to the gap, heart pounding a frantic psalm.
A deserter? A man bridging enemy lines, carrying secrets that could prolong the chains binding her people? Thomas exhaled, a sigh like wind through a sepulchre. How long?
Weeks, perhaps. The old crypt your pa bricked up in '49, behind the root shelves.
Sealed tight, forgotten.
I'll tend him: broth, bandages, silence.
No one the wiser.
When he's fit, he rides for Richmond, delivers the gospel.
We emerge heroes, medals, land grants, favor from the brass. The silence stretched, taut as a hangman's rope.
Lila imagined Thomas's mind churning like millstones, weighing souls against silver. The quarters buzz with eyes and ears. One slip, and Union torches turn this to ash.
Or our own boys brand us traitors for hoarding intel. Won't happen. My oath on it. Silas's voice hardened, a vow etched in blood. Thomas's laugh was bitter, hollow. Oaths break like brittle bones.
But duty calls, divine or damned.
Proceed. And pray the Almighty blinds our foes.
Footsteps faded toward the basement hatch, hinges groaning like the gates of Hades. Lila lay frozen, mind ablaze. A hidden man beneath her feet, enemy yet fugitive, his fate a mirror to her own bondage.
Secrets were currency in the shadows, knowledge a weapon for the powerless.
But deeper stirred something primal, empathy for the hunted, a spark of the Samaritan's mercy amid fields of thorns.
Why? Aid a cog in her oppressor's machine?
Yet the breathing she imagined ragged, pained echoed her mother's parting gasps. In that moment, biblical whispers flooded her: love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you. A child's heart, uncorrupted by hate's full poison, pondered the cost of compassion. Dawn broke with merciless light, the plantation stirring to its ritual grind. Lila rose, movements mechanical, emptying slops from porcelain basins, their stench a reminder of degradation, scrubbing hearths until ash blackened her knees like penitential marks. In the kitchen, under the watchful gaze of Miriam, the elder cook, a stout woman of 55, her face a map of endured sorrows, gray braids coiled like serpents, Lila prepared gruel and cornbread. Miriam's hands, gnarled from decades of toil, stirred pots with rhythmic authority, her eyes sharp as eagles.
Child, you drift like a ghost today. Fever got you? No, ma'am. Just weary bones.
Lila's voice was soft, evasive.
Miriam huffed, spoon clanging. Weary? At your age?
I picked cotton till my fingers bled raw before sunup.
Housework's a mercy, thank the Lord for small favors.
Her words carried the weight of generational scars, a hierarchy where suffering was measured, compared, diminished.
Fetch cider vinegar from below.
And mind the rats, they bite sinners first. Miriam's jest masked deeper fears, her faith a patchwork of scripture and folklore. Descending the narrow stairs, Lila's candle flame danced, illuminating the cellar's gloom, low-beamed ceiling dripping moisture like tears, shelves bowed under jars of pickled okra, smoked hams swaying like pendulums. The air was cooler, earthy, laced with fermentation's tang, a respite from above swelter. At the rear, behind stacked crates, the bricked wall loomed, mortar fresh in patches, betraying recent labor.
Lila pressed close, ear to stone. Silence at first, then a faint wheeze, labored inhales wet with infection. Pain's symphony, human and haunting.
She snatched the vinegar and fled upstairs, but the sound clung like burrs. That night, in her alcove, visions plagued her, the man in pitch black, wounds festering like unrepented sins, dependent on Silas's capricious grace. She'd witnessed Silas's wrath, a runaway flogged till his back resembled plowed earth, life ebbing under indifferent stars. Mercy was foreign to him, utility his god. For days blurred, Lila observed Silas's furtive visits, bundles concealed under his coat, bandages stained crimson, poultices of herbs. His face darkened, brows furrowed in frustration. Overhearing in the hall while dusting portraits, faded ancestors staring accusatorily, Lila caught fragments, wounds turned foul, pus like brimstone. Needs a surgeon's blade, not my ham-fisted care. Thomas's retort was ice, no outsiders. Union spies infest every crossroads. One whisper, and we're kindling. Then he rots? His maps could rally our lines, lives saved, glory claimed. Glory's a fool's lure. The South crumbles, Sherman's horde devours all. I'll not risk hearth for a dying dream. Let Providence decide. Silas stormed off, door slamming like thunderclap. Lila's hands trembled on the rag. The man was condemned, abandoned to decay in his stone coffin. Yet abandonment gnawed at her soul, the biblical imperative, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. A child's logic, pure and perilous, if no one else would act, she must. Midnight cloaked the house in velvet hush. Lila slipped from her nook, pilfering a lantern wick, crust of bread, flask of well water. Barefoot, she navigated to the cellar, flame guttering in drafts like faltering faith. The bricked wall yielded to probing fingers a loose stone. Mortar crumbly from haste. She pried it free, splinters biting flesh, blood welling like stigmata. A gap opened, wide enough for a child's arm. Peering in, the lantern revealed horror, a man huddled in filth, mid-30s, uniform tattered Union blue-stained Confederate gray, deserter's ambiguity. His face gaunt, fever-flushed, wound bandaged crudely, reeking of rot. Eyes fluttered open, needing hers, blue depths swirling pain, surprise, gratitude. Who? His voice a rasp, like wind through graves. Lila, she whispered, passing bread through. Eat. Heal. God watches. He took it, fingers brushing hers, electric spark of shared humanity. In that touch, worlds collided, oppressor and oppressed, enemy and savior. The act sealed a pact, laden with spiritual peril, mercy as rebellion, compassion as curse. Little did she know, this mercy would summon storms of retribution, unraveling the plantation's fragile veil and exposing sins to heaven's unblinking gaze. As days bled into weeks, Lila's secret vigil deepened. By day, she toiled invisibly, her mind a whirlwind of plans, smuggling poultices from Miriam's herb garden, yarrow for fever, willow bark for pain, concealed in her apron. Nights brought whispered exchanges through the gap, widening it stone by stone until a child could slip through. The man's name was Elias, a Pennsylvania farmer conscripted into Union ranks, deserting after Antietam's carnage shattered his faith. Saw brothers slaughter brothers, he'd murmur, voice hoarse. Where's God in that bloodbath? Lila shared scraps of scripture, pieced from eavesdrop services, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Their bond grew, fragile as spider silk, stories exchanged like sacraments. Elias spoke of northern winters, snow pure as redemption. Lila of African tales her mother whispered, spirits guarding the oppressed.
But shadows lengthened. Silas's visits waned, suspicion brewing.
One evening, as Lila descended with stolen broth, footsteps echoed above. Thomas, lantern in hand. Heart-seizing, she doused her light, pressing into alcove shadows.
He inspected the wall, fingers tracing mortar, muttering curses. Damned if I'll let this haunt us.
He departed, but the air thickened with omen. Elias's fever broke under Lila's care, strength returning like Lazarus rising. Yet healing brought peril, his secrets, scrawled on scavenged paper, Union vulnerabilities, tempted betrayal.
Lila pondered, deliver them to freedom fighters? Destroy them to hasten war's end? Moral quagmires swirled, biblical dilemmas, David's mercy to Saul, or Judas's kiss. Tensions mounted. Eleanor's health plummeted, her screams piercing nights, visions of buried infants, accusing specters.
The ground cries out, she'd wail, Abel's blood echoing.
Thomas drowned doubts in whiskey, lashing out at workers.
Silas, sensing shifts, patrolled relentlessly, his whip cracking like thunderbolts.
In the Cellar's confessional, Elias and Lila forged alliance, plans for escape, northward flight.
You're my angel, he'd say, handprint pressed to wall beside hers, symbols of unity. But divine justice loomed, a storm brewing, literal and metaphorical, as Sherman's forces neared.
Weeks stretched, Lila's body wearying, sleepless nights, risks mounting.
A close call, Ruth discovering missing herbs, eyes narrowing.
Thievery's a sin, child. God sees all. Lila's silence masked terror.
By midsummer, Elias mended, but bonds deepened, fatherly protectiveness from him, filial trust from her.
Conversations turned philosophical, sin's inheritance, redemption's path.
Your mercy saves my soul, Elias confessed.
But at what cost to yours? The plantation groaned under war's weight, rations scant, deserters roaming, Union scouts probing. Thomas's paranoia peaked, ordering night watches. Lila's secret teetered, a precipice of revelation.
In this crucible, spiritual undertones intensified, the Cellar as Sheol, Lila as intercessor, Elias as prodigal. Their handprints, etched in mud, symbolized covenant, fragile, eternal.
As autumn whispered, escape beckoned. But fate, or providence, intervened, a betrayal brewing, Silas's suspicions crystallizing. The stage set for unraveling, divine retribution poised to strike.
The fetid breath of the hidden chamber assaulted Lila like a physical blow, a miasma of decay that clawed at her throat, sweat mingled with the copper tang of blood, the sour rot of infection, and the acrid stench of despair's waste. It was the smell of a grave not yet filled, a purgatory where life clung stubbornly amid the ruins. Lila's candle flame flickered uncertainly, casting jagged shadows that danced like accusing spirits on the rough-hewn walls. Through the narrow gap she'd pried open, the darkness beyond seemed alive, pulsing with labored breaths and unspoken agony.
Who's there?
The voice emerged from the void, frail as a dying ember, laced with raw panic that echoed off the stone.
Virgil? That you, man?
Lila leaned closer, her small face pressed to the splintered edge, forcing shallow breaths through her mouth.
Not Virgil. Not here to harm. Brought water, clean, from the well.
She'd slipped a dented pewter mug from the scullery, filled it under the moon's judgmental gaze, the liquid cool and pure against the night's oppressive heat. Now, she extended it through the breach, her arm trembling slightly from fear and the weight of this transgression. A rustle in the gloom, slow, agonizing, like bones grinding against earth. Fingers, clammy and weak, brushed hers as they grasped the mug. The sound of desperate gulps followed, water spilling in rivulets, pattering onto the dirt floor like tears from heaven.
When the drinking ceased, a ragged wheeze filled the silence, the man's chest heaving as if each inhale was a battle against drowning.
Bless you, he rasped, voice cracking like parched soil. God, bless your soul, child. You're the scout, Lila whispered, her words barely audible over the distant hoot of an owl outside, a harbinger in the night.
The Confederate.
Overheard them scheming, Thomas and Silas.
A heavy pause, thick as the air itself. And you? Who risks the lash for a stranger? Nobody special. Just the house girl. They look through me like glass. Invisible, that's my shield. She hesitated, then pressed on. You, fading? Going to meet your maker? The silence stretched, eternal as Judgment Day. Then, resigned, likely. Poisons in the blood, spreading like wildfire through veins. Days, maybe a week. Seen enough boys rot in fields to recognize the signs. Made my peace, confessed my sins to the dark. Just regret, the intel. Could have turned tides, given my end meaning. Now. Dust to dust. Lila's mind raced, images flashing like lightning in a storm, the overseer's whip cracking like thunder, stripping flesh from backspout in eternal toil, her mother's silhouette dragged away at dawn, chains rattling like the devil's laughter, the tiny graves in the slave cemetery, unmarked mounds where hope withered unborn. Thomas's cold calculations, treating souls as ledger entries, profitable or expendable. And now this man, walled in like a biblical leper, abandoned because his life weighed less than a plantation's precarious safety. He was the enemy, his secret's chains prolonging her bondage. Yet in his suffering, she saw her own reflection, a soul trapped, unseen, pleading for mercy in a world deaf to cries. I know healing ways, she murmured, voice steady despite the quake in her chest. Not much, but enough. Miriam showed me herbs for fever, salves for rot. Could tend you. Try, at least. Suspicion edged his tone, weak but sharp. Why? I'm Greco through and through. Union victory snaps your shackles. Should pray for my end, hasten the dawn. Lila pondered, the candle's wax dripping like sacrificial blood onto her hand. Maybe. Or maybe masters just swap colors. White men promise stars, deliver dust. Don't know tomorrow's shape. But I know cages locked in smokehouses, forgotten. No invisibility's curse, folks stepping over you like your shadow. Can't watch. Another soul wither when my hands could help. Right or wrong, it's burning in me. She heard him shift, fabric scraping dirt, a groan escaping like a soul sigh. Name? Lila. Elias Hawthorne, Pennsylvania Volunteers, deserted the blue, feeding whispers to the gray. If you're set on this path, girl, heed me, discovery means hellfire. Silas? No mercy in that beast, flogs for sport, kills for silence. Thomas? Desperation twists men into monsters. They'd string you up to bury secrets. I know the risks. Then why court the noose? Her answer came slow, forged in the fire of long-suppressed fire. Tired of ghosts, watching pain, doing nothing. If I save one spark, maybe I'm more than chattel. Maybe I'm chosen, like Ruth in the fields or Esther in the palace, making moves that echo. Proves I'm real, with will divine. Have to try, or what's left? Quiet enveloped them, broken only by his shallow breaths. Then, soft as a prayer, braver than battle-hardened men. Outshines my cowardice, for sure. Lila wedged the board back, seamless as before, snuffing her light and ascending into the house's stifling embrace. Her pulse thundered like distant cannonade, fear mingling with a nascent fire purpose, hot and holy, the first choice truly hers in a life scripted by others. Nights blurred into a ritual of shadows. She returned under moon's veiled watch, bearing life's fragments, water first, crystal and mercy in a parched hell, then morsels pilfered with ghost-like precision, crumbs of johnny cake, slivers of salt pork, a pilfered apple's crisp redemption. Miriam's kitchen eyes missed nothing usually, but Lila's art of absence prevailed, taking pinches, not handfuls, her movements fluid as wind through cracks. She scavenged rags from laundry scraps, weaving them into bandages, a poultice of comfrey and honey, stolen from the herb jar, its scent masking decay's foul breath. By flickering taper, through the widening fissure, now child-sized from her nocturnal labors, she ministered. Elias's wound gaped like sin's open maw, entry front, exit back, both festering pits of pus and fire, flesh inflamed as if branded by infernal irons. The odor assaulted like brimstone, but Lila steeled her gut, recalling Miriam's lessons, wounds on field hands, ignored till gangrene claimed limbs. She cleansed with boiled rags, packed salve deep, bound tight. Willow tea followed, bitter as regret, to douse fever's blaze, knowledge from old Nana, gone 3 winters past, her African roots entwined with native lore. Plants whisper secrets, Nana had said, eyes gleaming like coals. Heal or harm, choice is power. Dangerous wisdom, poisoned suspicions had hanged healers before. But in Lila's hands, it became salvation's tool.
Risk shadowed every descent, stairs creaking like accusatory bones, a house alive with potential betrayers. Yet invisibility cloaked her years of fading into wallpaper, now a divine gift, a shroud against prying eyes.
Weeks wove into June's swelter, Elias mending like Lazarus stirring.
Fever shattered on the 7th night, leaving him tremulous but clear-eyed.
Infection retreated, wounds knitting under her vigilant care. Strength returned in increments, first whispers, then tales spun in the gloom.
He painted his pre-war canvas, a modest homestead in Ohio's rolling hills, 40 acres of stubborn loam yielding corn and faith. A wife, Amelia, with laughter like spring rain, wedded 18, a son, Jacob, 5 now, with curls like his ma's and mischief in his gaze. Enlisted in blue, heart heavy, thought at Union's call, preserve the whole. But fields ran red, brothers gutted like hogs. Deserted, cross lines, feeding gray intel for a shot at peace.
Now. See the rot, war's veil for. Chains eternal.
Rich feast on poor's bones.
Complicit in evil, my sin stains deep. Lila absorbed, offering no absolution. White reckonings often spilled aloud, seeking witness.
She shared fragments, mother's vanishing silhouette, auction blocks echo, ceaseless drudgery, fear's constant companion, tiny defiances, stolen glances at stars, a hidden pebble as anchor.
Taught myself letters, she confided. From jar labels, tossed papers.
Illegal, but shadows hide much.
Miraculous, Elias breathed. Outreads half the regiment. Not miracle armor. Mine's fortress unbreakable. Nana said, body's theirs, soul's yours. Wise woman. Broken by loss, daughter sold, spirit fled. Found her still, free at last. His silence weighed heavy. Forgive us, Lord. Forgiveness? Hollow as promises.
July's heat baked the earth, Elias pacing his crypt, 10 by 8, dirt floor slick with seep, walls weeping like penitent sinners. No light save her visit's glow, silence broken by vermin's scurry, thoughts spiraling into madness.
Feels like Sheol, he confessed.
Punished for blood on hands.
Not hell, Lila countered. George's close kin. Hold to dawn.
He chuckled, cough fading. Wit sharp as saber, for one so young.
Young? Stolen childhood at 7. Innocence? Luxury I never tasted.
But shadows deepened.
Silas's visit ceased, a void ominous as gathering storm. Last time, 3 nights back, Elias revealed.
Said Yanks closing, too hot.
One more ration, then fend alone. Break free, head south. Hasn't returned. Thomas's mercy?
Starvation's cleaner than blade. Rage ignited in Lila, biblical fury like David's against Goliath.
Then I'll sustain. Bread from Pharaoh's table. Lila, no risks mount. Careless steps invite doom. Don't care. Should. War's end nears, freedom's horizon. Don't sacrifice for this wretch. Freedom? Bitter laugh. Illusion's chain. Color endures, poverty binds. Better cage? Maybe. But won't abandon, mercy's my mark.
Suspicion brewed above, Miriam's glances sharpened, inventory tallies whispered, Silas's eyes bored like augers, tracking her with predator's patience.
Twice he loomed, jaw-grinding puzzles.
Crisis crested in July's blaze. Kitchen sweltered, air thick as judgment's fog.
Lila chopped greens, sweat beating like penance beads, pot simmering beans' earthy prayer. Miriam pounded dough, rhythmic as heartbeat.
Through walls, voices clashed, Thomas and Silas in the parlor, tones jagged as shattered glass.
End it, Thomas snarled. Tonight.
Healed or half dead, gone. Unions sent hounds closing, can't harbor ghosts longer.
Silas growled back, and the intel? Wastes away with him? Intel be damned. Survival scripture now. Drag him to woods, slit throat quiet.
Bury deep, secrets with bones. Lila's knife slipped, blood welling on thumb, stigmata of overhearing doom.
The pact teetered, divine scales tipping toward revelation. Mercy, once spark, now inferno threatening to consume all.
In the plantation's haunted halls, ghosts stirred, guilt specters, redemption's whispers, retribution's thunder on horizon. As summer waned, Lila's vigil intensified, smuggling double portions, widening the breach for fleeting touches, hand to hand, soul to soul. Elias sketched escape maps on dirt, erased at dawn, northward trails, safe houses in abolitionist whispers.
"You're my guardian," he murmured. "Angel in chains."
But omens multiplied, a missing spoon noted, Silas patrolling cellars at odd hours, his lantern swinging like censers swing. Eleanor's wails pierced nights, prophetic cries of blood, cries from ground, echoing Cain's curse.
Lila's frame thinned, sleep fractured by visions, Elias rotting unseen, her own. Flogging under merciless sun.
Yet resolve hardened, spiritual fire, like Moses' burning bush, unconsumed.
"Lord, guide these hands," she'd pray in alcoves dark, blending Nana's spirits with sermon scraps. By August's dog days, Elias stood firm, wound-scarred like battle hymn.
Conversations deepened, philosophy in whispers, sin's inheritance, grace's gamble.
"Your kindness redeems me," he said.
But beware, mercy invites envy of angels fallen.
Plantation groaned, fields parched, rumors of Sherman's blaze southward. Thomas paced like caged beast, liquor fueling rages, Silas's whip sang frequent, displacing dread. In crypt's confessional, plans crystallized, moonless night breakout, Lila guiding through wood's labyrinth.
Handprints deepened in mud wall, covenants sealed, adult and child united against abyss. Yet fate loomed, a stolen glance from Miriam, child, secrets weigh heavy, God sees. Tension coiled, divine drama unfolding, mercy's light-piercing sin's shroud, inviting heaven's hammer. The argument's venom hung in the sweltering kitchen air like a curse unspoken, seeping through the thin walls into Lila's trembling ears. Thomas's voice sliced sharp as a reaper's scythe, devoid of mercy, I care not if he crawls or collapses.
Drag him to the thicket and abandon him. If death claims him, so be it.
He poisons my soil no longer. Silas protested, his tone gravelly with reluctant fury, the lantern's flicker casting demonic shadows across his brutish face.
He's frail as a newborn foal, shoulder mangled, steps faltering.
This is murder veiled as mercy. Better his end than ours, Thomas retorted, his eyes cold as Judas's silver. Union scouts swarm within 15 miles, whispers from the mill yesterday.
They ransack every barn, every cellar, hunting greycoats, provisions, secrets. Discover him here? We're all noosed, me, you, the lot. Hanged as traitors to the victors. And his maps? The routes that could salvage our lines? Damn the maps.
The South crumbles like Babel's tower, Richmond besieged, Lee cornered.
Surrender's shadow looms. When bluecoats triumph, I'll stand unbowed, no rebels sheltered here. Loyalty proven, lands preserved. Coward's creed, Silas spat, fists clenching like coiled serpents.
Survivor's wisdom, Thomas countered, voice steady as a gravedigger's spade.
Obey. Tonight. Rid my house of this ghost. Lila's spoon halted mid-stir, the beans bubbling like cauldrons of wrath. Her blood ran cold as winter's frost. Elias doomed, Virgil's blade or the wilds his executioner.
She must warn him, spirit him away before the devil's henchman struck.
But how? Elias, still frail from fever's grip, could scarcely hobble. Woods teemed with patrols, blue and gray alike, ready to claim scalps. Flight meant peril, yet staying invited slaughter.
As dusk bled into night's velvet shroud, Lila forsook caution. Miriam's snores rumbled like distant thunder from her pallet, the house sighed into uneasy slumber.
Lila descended the stairs, steps silent as a specter's glide, candle guttering against drafts that whispered warnings.
She wrenched the loose stones wider, urgency fueling her small frame. Elias, she hissed into the abyss, voice a threat of desperation.
They come tonight. Flee now, or perish.
Movement stirred in the gloom, a groan escaping like a soul's lament.
Can't, strength fails me. Steps wobble, shoulder burns like hellfire. A mile? I'd crumple like dry leaves.
Then lean on me, Lila urged, resolve hardening like tempered steel.
I won't abandon you. Not after moons of mending, pouring life into your veins. Lila, no, your fate seals with mine.
Lashes, or worse.
Damn the lashes. Mercy demands this. We've danced with death, let's outrun it together.
Her fingers flew, prying bricks with frantic zeal, splinters embedding like thorns of Calvary, nails splintering, blood trickling warm and sticky down her palms, staining the stone like sacrificial offerings. Pain flared, but she pressed on, widening the breach until a man could wriggle free. Elias emerged into the candle's halo, revealed at last, mid-20s, face etched with suffering's lines, eyes sunken pools reflecting gratitude and awe. Beard unkempt as a prophet's, frame skeletal from captivity's famine, uniform rags clinging like shrouds.
His left arm dangled limp, bandages yellowed with age, scent of healing herbs faint against earth's musk.
You're so young, he breathed, voice cracking with wonder, as if beholding a miracle. Age means naught, Lila replied, chin lifted defiant.
Soul knows justice from iniquity. Now move. Time flees.
She bore his weight up the stairs, his arms slung over her slight shoulders, heavy as sin's burden, her knees buckling under the load.
Steps creaked softly, each one a prayer against discovery.
They reached the kitchen, Lila's hand grasping the back door's latch, freedom's threshold. Then, boots thudded on the porch, heavy as judgment's gavel.
Silas, come to enact the decree.
In a heartbeat's panic, Lila shoved Elias toward her alcove's maw, the crawl space beneath stairs, her former prison now sanctuary.
In, silent as the grave. Breathe not. Lila. Now.
He contorted into the cramped void, face twisting in agony as his wound protested.
Lila sealed the panel just as Silas burst through, his bulk filling the room like a storm cloud. Eyes narrowed to slits, suspicion coiling like smoke. Up at witching hour?
Speak, girl. Thirst plagued me, Lila lied, voice steady as a psalm, though her heart thundered like apocalyptic drums. She crossed to the ewer, dipping a tin cup, sipping slow to mask her quake. Water cool against parched lips, but fear's bile soured it. Silas's gaze raked her face, blood-smeared hands, rigid stance hunting deceit like a hound scents blood.
Silence stretched, taut as a bowstring. Then, a grunt, dismissive.
He lumbered to the cellar hatch, descending into depths. Lila froze, ears straining, his curse echoed, discovery's roar.
Boots scuffed dirt, searching the crypt empty now, save echoes of captivity. He ascended, fury incarnate, face twisted like a demon's mask.
In 2 strides, he seized her arm, vice grip bruising flesh, drawing a gasp like Eve's first sin.
Where's the rat?
Spill, or taste leather.
Who?
Innocence feigned, though terror clawed her throat. His hand reared, palm calloused for violence, blows she'd endured, body schooled in yielding to spare bones. But a voice cleaved the tension, release her. Elias loomed in the doorway, swaying like a reed in gale, kitchen blade clutched in good hand, pilfered from the block, edge glinting cold.
Pallor ghostly, sweat beating like dewdrops of dread, yet eyes burned with righteous fire. Silas dropped Lila, pivoting slow as a predator. Fool, you're half-ghost. No match. Perhaps, Elias countered, blade steady despite tremor. But my cry wakes the house.
Thomas explains a hidden greycoat to wife, kin, union hounds prowling.
Scandal spreads like plague. Deserter, they'll brand you hiding while brothers bleed. Tribunal's noose awaits for cowardice. Elias's laugh was bitter, hollow as a sepulchre. Let us vanish. Tell Thomas the first shattered bonds alone.
Plausible, your hide saved.
Silas's jaw ground, veins pulsing like rivers of rage.
Calculations flickered in his eyes, risks weighed against rewards, loyalty versus self-preservation. Finally, retreat, a step back, concession grudging.
Dawns your grace. Then, I summon grey hunters. They'll dog you to earth's end, string you high. And you? Gaze on Lila, pity's shadow fleeting. Folly's child, life squandered on a walking corpse. Worth the pyre?
My will, freely given, Lila whispered, spirit unbroken.
That sanctifies all. Silas departed, boots echoing retreat like fading thunder. Kitchen air thickened with aftermath's weight. Deed done, paths forked irrevocably. We fly, Elias urged, blade dropping with clatter. Before regret turns him. Whither? Lila queried, mind mapping perils. North, to blue lines. Sanctuary there, your chains shatter, my sins, atoned, perhaps. Lila pondered, abandoning the plantation's grim embrace, Miriam's stern tutelage, kin in bondage. Ahead, wilderness of unknowns, death's shadow lurking. Yet staying? Silas's blade or Thomas's silence, eternal quietus for knowing too much. Aye, she resolved. Onward. They slipped through the rear portal, Elias's gait halting, Lila his crutch. Night air cloyed with jasmine's deceitful sweetness, humidity cloaking like guilt's mantle. Moon a sliver, casting spectral glow on paths twisted as fate. They breached the tree-leaned then, horror's symphony, hounds baying, frenzied as hell's chorus. Pursuit already, Elias gasped, breath ragged. Silas betrayed, or sport's thrill lured him. Deeper into woods, branches lashing like scourges, roots snaring like temptations. Elias faltered, face ashen in moonlight, arm clutched to chest. Pace unsustainable, confinement's toll exacted. Abandon me, he pleaded, stumbling. Swift alone, you endure. No, Lila vowed, grip firm. Bound in mercy, we rise or fall as one. Covenant sealed. Onward, minds racing. Then, memory sparked, Miriam's lore, fugitive whispers, dogs foiled by water's veil. Creek eastward, quarter league, Lila panted. Wade downstream, scent drowns. Chance granted. Direction shifted, pursuit swelling, barks manic, voices bellowing, torches flickering like infernal eyes, 80 yards, closing. Creek's edge burst upon them as lead hound erupted from brush, fangs bared like judgment's teeth. Into icy flow they plunged, shock numbing, current tugging like sin's undertow. Waist deep for Lila, chest for Elias, stone slick as deceit. Hound halted at bank, bewildered, nose questing lost trail. Pack amassed, men torch-bearing, 5 shadows, curses raining. Trail cold, one growled. Virgil skins us, fan out, banks both. Weaklings, they're near. Lila and Elias clung to overhang's shadow, willow draping like mourner's veil. Water-lapped chins, bodies quaking in cold's embrace. Mosquitoes feasted, but stillness reigned, breath held, prayers silent. Eons passed in minutes, search veered upstream, voices dimming like receding storms. Emerging sodden, chilled despite summer's warmth, Elias chattered, shelter imperative, hide till vigor returns. Unlikely spot. Lila mapped, derelict mill, 2 leagues hence. Plague claimed owners decades past, cursed, folk say. Shunned by all. Lead in gloom? Memory guides once foraged herbs there with ma. Path etched. Through night they trudged, pauses frequent for Elias's respite. Woods pulsed, leaves sighing psalms, owls hooting omens, creatures rustling like unseen witnesses. Landmarks guided, gnarled elm, boulder cairn, blade of thorns blooming defiant. Dawn's blush-kissed horizon as mill loomed, skeletal frame, roof caved like fallen grace, vines strangling walls like sins unchecked. Door askew, windows vacant eyes. Inside, decay's bouquet, mold, rust, forgotten echoes. They crumpled, exhaustion's tide overwhelming. Lila fashioned palette from tattered canvas, Elias collapsing with sigh. Gratitude eternal, he murmured, lids heavy. Not yet, Lila cautioned, vigilant by breach. Peril lingers. Alive still, miracles whisper. Days blurred in hiding's rhythm, vigil by day, forage by dusk. Lila scavenged, berries tart as redemption, roots earthy, stream water pure. Once, a fowl snared, feathers plucking like confessions. Elias mended gradual, scar tissue knitting, though arm stiffened eternal, nerves sundered, mobility's price. In seclusion's hush, souls bared, Elias of homestead hearth, wife Eliza's gentle strength, daughter Mia's laughter like brook's song. Desertion's blueprint, northbound, rebirth in shadows. Guilt's confessions, felled a boy bluecoat, barely bearded. Wounded, mother crying. Mercy possible, but orders iron, no delays. bullets mercy false, his eyes haunt, Abel's blood accusing. Lila listened, offering solace's silence. Her tales, bondage's yoke, small rebellions, stolen literacy, hidden prayers blending ancestors' spirits with biblical fire. Freedom's flame, yet chains linger in hearts. Weeks 3 in Mill's embrace, strength coalesced. But whispers grew, Union advances, Sherman's blaze nearing. Resolve forged, press north, seek blue salvation. Yet fates will turned, scouts rumored, dogs distant. Spiritual weight pressed, mercy's boon or curse? Divine ledger balancing acts of grace against rebellion's toll. In Mill's gloom, handprints on dusty beam echo of Cellar's pact, eternal bond. Flight beckoned, retribution's storm brewing on horizon. The Mill's shadowed sanctuary cradled their confessions like a confessional in the wilderness, dust motes dancing in slivers of sunlight that pierced the fractured roof like divine spears. Elias's voice, once a rasp from the crypt's depths, now carried the weight of unburdened remorse as he unraveled the threads of his fractured spirit. That boy's cry, "Mother!" as the bullet took him. Wounded in mud, eyes pleading for mercy I denied. Orders barked, "No prisoners, march on." I obeyed. His face, it visits my dreams, accusing like Cain's mark. I'll carry that echo to my grave. Lila sat cross-legged on the burlap pallet, her small hands folded, eyes reflecting the lantern's glow like polished amber. Silence was her offering, no absolution granted, for war had forged monsters of men, twisting souls into knots of survival. Elias was no outlier, the conflict had devoured innocence, compelling atrocities veiled as duty. She shared her own veiled rebellions, the illicit thrill of deciphering letters on jar labels by candle stub, the smooth riverstone talisman warmed in her pocket like a secret prayer, the art of vanishing into plain sight amid cruel gazes. And the wound that never scarred over, her mother's parting, skirts clutched in desperate fingers until Silas's brute hands ripped her away, locking her screams in the smokehouse's dark. Will her face ever return to you? Elias asked, voice soft as falling pine needles. Gone, likely. Alabama's fields grind souls to dust, work till collapse, replace like broken tools. That's the ledger of lives. Regret chokes me. Regret resurrects nothing. Words are wind, deeds endure. Early August's oppressive heat yielded to cooler nights, Elias's vigor returning like a prodigal's tentative steps. They ventured north under Polaris's steadfast gaze, shadows among shadows, skirting roads scarred by wagon ruts, evading hamlets' flickering lanterns. Forests enveloped them in verdant cloaks. Rivers crossed in chilling fords that numbed flesh and spirit alike. Confederate pickets and Union foragers alike lurked, trust was a luxury forsaken. Sustenance came from earth's reluctant bounty, wild persimmons tart as unspoken truths, pilfered corn from untended fields, streams crystal mercy. Yet grace appeared in shadowed parcels, cloth-wrapped cornbread, jars of peach preserves, a ham hock left at crossroads by unseen kin in bondage, silent solidarity from those who recognized fugitives' plight. These offerings, anonymous as angels' interventions, fueled their pilgrimage. Mid-August's pine-scented veil shrouded them when voices pierced the gloom, low murmurs, metal's clandestine clink, campfire's sullen glow. Soldiers encamped, allegiance veiled. They halted, breaths synchronized with the night's pulse. Patrols overdue, a Yankee drawl carried. Assume captured, slain, or fled. Woods swarm with Rebs, deserters both banners. Dawn marched to Monroe, 3 days, God willing. Union lines, at last, Providence's precarious threshold. Elias's eyes met Lila's, hope warring with dread's shadow. Survival against odds astronomical, yet what reception awaited a gray deserter and enslaved child? Emerging hands aloft, deliberate as penitents approaching altar, rifles swung their way, muzzles glinting like judgment's eyes. Tension coiled, trigger fingers itching. Halt! Identify, barked a lieutenant, youthful yet battle-hardened, moonlight etching resolve on his features. Elias Hawthorne, late Pennsylvania, deserter to your cause. This child, Lila, my savior. Tended my wounds, guided me hither through hell's gauntlet these months. The officer's scrutiny shifted to Lila, ragged garb clinging like accusations, feet calloused and bare, visage etched with exhaustion's indelible lines. Your age, miss? 12 winters, sir. A flicker crossed his face, admiration laced with sorrow's veil. Alone with him, moons on end? I
freed him from chain's shadow on the plantation.
Healed his festering wound when masters decreed death. Mercy compelled me, couldn't abide another soul's eclipse. Prolonged silence, assessing her unyielding gaze.
Then, weapon lowered, command rippling, stand down.
Safe harbor now. Sustenance, garb, rest will chart your course. The encampment sprawled vast as a besieged city, tents billowing like sails in breeze, wagons groaning under provisions, fires dotting the clearing like stars fallen to earth.
Blue-clad legions numbered in thousands, a tidal force reshaping the South. Real repast awaited, salt pork savory, hardtack unyielding yet nourishing, coffee's bitter warmth chasing chills. Garments issued, Elias fitted, Lila swathed in oversized wool that draped like a prophet's robe.
Interrogations followed, probing as surgeons' blades.
Lila yielded details of the plantation acreage, fortifications scant, enslaved tally, structures vulnerabilities, Thomas's hoarded caches. Guilt not irrationally, betraying the cage that forged her, yet the Herove's loyalty was myth, her worth mere chattel.
Elias divulged Confederate whispers, troop shifts, fragile flanks, while disavowing further bloodshed.
Guards shadowed him, trust tempered by war's cynicism.
3 dawns later, a regiment descended. Lila gleaned aftermath from returning victors. Thomas fled westward with Eleanor, wagon laden with fleeting treasures, vanished into Alabama's mists, fates obscured.
Silas barricaded the manor, rifle defiant, felled on the porch, life's crimson pooling as flames devoured the edifice, retribution's pyre. Enslaved liberated, yet freedom's promise soured in contraband camps, squalor teeming, fever rampant, rations meager.
Typhus and despair claimed multitudes, liberty's bitter irony.
Inquiries on Miriam yielded voids, scattered like seeds in gale, seeking kin severed by sails, forging existences from war's rubble. September's crisp edge saw Elias depart northward, Pennsylvania's hearth calling. Farewell laced with tears, a wooden dove proffered, whittled in Mill's idle hours, wings delicate as hope, feathers etched with meticulous care.
You redeemed me, he choked. Bravest soul amid legions. Should another daughter grace us, she'll bear your name, Lila eternal.
Your path, she queried, tracing the carving's grace.
Amends sins.
Instill equality's gospel in my brood, slavery's abomination confessed.
Redeemed through deeds. And yours?
Gazing at camp's tumult, bluecoats, freed souls navigating chaos undecided.
But survival's my creed, I'll carve it. Parting eternal. Whispers reached her decades hence, Elias reunited with kin, carpenter's quiet life till 1892's repose. A daughter born 1868, Lila Elizabeth. Truth or echo?
She cherished the hope, he'd honored vows, found absolution's fragile peace.
Lila trailed the Union vanguard through Georgia's scorched veins, laboring as laundress and cook, toil familiar, yet compensated in scant coins, hers by right. Savings amassed in hidden pouch, dreaming autonomy.
War's capitulation in 1865 propelled her to Atlanta's rebirth. Boarding house under Miriam's, under Aunt Delilah's stern yet nurturing wing, a freedwoman of fortitude. Lessons imparted, ledger balancing, household command, Reconstruction's treacherous navigation, defiance tempered to endure. Literacy blossomed, evenings poring over primers by tallow light. Arithmetic mastered in accounts.
Resilience honed against lingering contempt.
At 1871, her establishment rose, modest, 8 chambers, funded by thrift and loan.
Haven for freed kin, affordable refuge, nourishing meals, counsel amid freedom's thorns.
Generosity defined her, shelter for penniless, sustenance for starving, guidance through peril.
Unwed, childless, yet matriarch too. Multitudes, embodying compassion's quiet revolution.
The dove perched on her mantle till 1910's gentle passing at 58.
Bequest, house transformed to academy for black youth, perpetual sanctuary for persecution's fugitives.
Structure raised in 1952 for Progress's blade, but institution endured, plaque affixed 1990, founded by Lila, surname lost, 1871.
Freedom's true guardian, compassion unending. The plantation crumbled, manor mysteriously torched 1867, vengeance or heaven's bolt?
Land fragmented, subsumed by modernity's sprawl.
Cellar interred till 1930s excavation unearthed it, walls scarred with tallies Elias's desperate calendar. Chain rusted, purpose enigmatic. Concealed portal, child-sized, bore minuscule inscription, Lila aided. Sensational headlines speculated, fugitive haven? Captives torment? Darkness veiled.
Truth coalesced in 1935, archival dive yielded lieutenant's dispatch, lauding Negro child, circa 12, architect of deserter's flight, intelligence font, valor incarnate.
Nameless, yet unmistakable. Trail chilled, Lila's life post-war ephemeral, no portraits, epistles scant. Culmination in 1962, descendant unearthed Elias's journal, pages fervent with remembrance. Obsessive chronicles, confinement's agony, dialogues profound, Lila's inexplicable grace amid enmity. Guilt's torrent, complicity in chains while she liberated him. Final entry, 1908, decades hence, life rebuilt, progeny taught justice's imperative.
Yet her shadow looms, child who should have scorned me, chose salvation. Pray her freedom flourished, kindness rippled.
She transfigured me. Excerpts disseminated, linkages forged to Atlanta's philanthropist.
Narrative resurrected, no specters, merely humanity's flicker in atrocity's abyss, child's mercy defying logic, soldier's awakening.
Queries linger, profound as scripture's parables, what impels a bound soul to redeem her oppressor? How does grace shatter entrenched creed? In carnage claiming myriads, what weighs one? Compassionate deed? Freedom's essence, emancipation, or enduring equity? Evidence endures, prints fused in mud, Dove's legacy, journal's testament, school's vitality.
Plantation effaced beneath suburbs, yet foundations whisper if sought, Cellar's silhouette a sacred scar.
In hush, voices resonate, wounded plea, child's resolve. True terror?
Not phantoms, but humanity's capacity for cruelty and rare defiance through kindness.
A girl's water offering, defiance against oblivion. The portal vanished, yet photographs preserve, Lila aided.
Testament to choices transcending era, darkness yielding to light's inexorable dawn.
Perhaps sufficiency lies herein, remembrance. That Lila's subterranean vow reverberates, affirming action's eternity. In compassion's quiet rebellion, hope's unquenchable flame. What lingers for you in this chronicle? Full revelation, or red clay's buried enigmas? Share below.
For shadowed history's unveiling souls, subscribe, bell alert, disseminate to kindred spirits.
Until next revelation.